Last week we did a live stream that went a very long time and we covered a bunch of very interesting breadcrumbs surrounding the Jonathan Majors trial. One of them was the play that Jonathan Majors and Grace Jabbari saw on the night of March 24th, 2023. Within hours later is when we have this car incident happening. This is the cast from the play. And the plot of it, which shout out to Daisy Ball, who went and looked at the information, the plot of the play that they went and saw that night involves themes that are very similar to what ended up happening at the Penthouse in the early morning hours of March 25th. Everything from performance to erratic behavior to staging and finally committing a final act of, unaliving. It was a great stream. We talked about so many other different things that are coming together. And the live chat had so many insights. So I'm going to link to this in the description if you want to catch the episode in full, the live stream in full. You'll see some other gems where we uncover the mystery behind the sentimental sweatshirt, Jonathan Major's sentimental sweatshirt that Grace Jabbari decided to lay on the bathroom floor, closet floor in, as well as some conversations about culture and the different motions that were being filed at that point in time. To roll this up into a shorter video that's easy to digest, we're going to look at everything that Daisy Ball uncovered and a few quick thoughts on it, and you guys let me know what you think. To set the stage, let's look at how the defense characterizes what happened the morning of March 25th. Once alone in Mr. Majors' apartment, Mr. Majors was now hiding from her, meaning Grace Jabbari. At a hotel in Upper Manhattan, Ms. Jabbari doubled down on her campaign to get Mr. Majors back. She attempted to call him no less than 32 times, sent him imploring text missives begging for him to call, then switched to angry and jealous text messages about his purported infidelity. And then, when these tactics proved fruitless, she dropped the ultimate bomb and threatened to unalive just before 8 a.m. By then, and presumably while alone in Mr. Major's apartment, Mr. Jabbari had a broken right finger and a cut right behind her right ear, the former of which was visibly badly bruised and swollen, and the latter bleeding profusely onto bedsheets. Again, Mr. Jabbari tried to call Mr. Major several more times, and when he neither answered her calls nor responded to her unaliving threats, Mr. Jabbari phoned a friend in England a few minutes later at approximately 8 a.m., sending photos of her new injuries and confessing that she did not know how she hurt her finger. Mr. Jabbari also confessed to her British friend that she had been really scrappy, meaning physically violent, with Mr. Majors the night before. Around 9 a.m., Mr. Majors awoke to find his face stuck to the pillow with dried blood from the large gash delivered by Miss Jabbari's fingernails in the car. And here's that photo of the face gash bleeding on the pillow and the injuries. These photos were taken at 2:02:47 a.m. and then 2:03 in the morning, 23 seconds after the minute. Having photographed his bloody face and scratched arm at 2 a.m., Mr. Majors added a photograph of the bloody pillow to document this latest alcohol-fueled attack by Miss Jabbari. Then he saw her messages and frantic missed calls, and, as Miss Jabbari intended when she sent him the unaliving threats, he became worried for her and began calling her. Miss Jabbari ignored Mr. Major's texts and calls as she laid in his bed in Chelsea and messaged her British friend, adding fuel to the fear. Though he had booked his hotel for 2 nights so that he would not return to his own apartment until Miss Jabbari had flown back to London on March 26th, that was a pre-planned trip, Mr. Major succumbed to Miss Jabbari's plan and returned to his apartment at 10:30 a.m. on March 25th, 10 hours after she attacked and injured him, purely out of concern for her well-being, following her repeated threats of unaliving. What Mr. Majors found in his apartment spun his concern into complete panic. A deliberately placed sentimental photograph, a lit candle, intentionally stacked romantic items, a locked bedroom door, closed bedroom curtains, and no answer to his phone calls, calling her name, or loud knocks on the door. At around 11:11 a.m., after a building handyman unlocked the bedroom door to reveal a dark, soundless bedroom, Mr. Majors entered alone to find Miss Jabbari lying on the floor of his walk-in closet, naked but for a sweatshirt that had a significant sentimental connection for him. She appeared unconscious, and he immediately noticed the cut to her ear and her bruised finger. Within seconds, Mr. Majors called 911, and the first terrified words out of his mouth were, attempted unaliving.
New York City 911, you need police, fire, medical.
Hey, how are you? Is it medical? Attempted suicide, I think.
What is the location? What happened exactly, do you know?
No, I don't know. But she's unconscious.
Okay.
She's naked from the bottom down. She has a sweatshirt on. She's my ex-partner.
Right.
We broke up. I came back. She sent me text messages insinuating as much. I stayed in a hotel last night. I came home this morning. I banged on the door. I've been at the apartment for about 40 minutes now. I
Alright.
banged at the door. I couldn't get in. I finally went downstairs and asked the doorman to help us, and they let me in via the handyman.
Alright.
Yeah. She's 30 years old.
And if you want to revisit any of the testimony from Grace Jabbari about these incidences, or Holly Blakey, the friend in England, you can catch all of those. There's videos of them on my channel, as well as links to the transcripts, if you want to read them, in those video descriptions. But now we're going to look into what Daisy Ball unearthed as she looked into what this play was about and, pointed out the resemblance of these characters. Let's go through it. Daisy says, so these notes are Daisy here. Looking deeper at Grace Jabbari's first day of testimony on direct, 12/5/23, rereading this passage, pictured below, I decided to look into the specific excerpt of the transcript further. Grace Jabbari is being asked about the evening in question, to which this whole trial is about. She remembers some very specific things, but not others, so I went looking for answers. And this part of the testimony here, can you tell the members of the jury what, if any, plans you had that evening? We had been thinking about going to this play, and it was the last night, and he texted me from his office saying, I managed to get us tickets to the show. So then we made plans to do that and found a restaurant to go to after. So that was our evening plans. When you say show, where was the show? At BAM, which is Brooklyn Academy of Music. Were you planning on going to dinner? There was a spot that I'd been to a few weeks before with a friend that was nearby that I really liked, so I booked us there, called Walters. Do you remember what the play was? I've totally forgotten the name of it, but yeah, I can't remember the name in the moment now. So Daisy goes and looks at the play that had its last night on that date, and it was The Sign in Sidney Brustein's Window. So then Daisy dives into the plot of the story. The play focuses on Sidney Brustein and his wife, Iris Brustein, but there are two secondary characters that caught my attention. An interracial couple comprised of an African-American man, Alton Scales, and a white woman, Gloria Paratus. Mind you, there is some apparent racial tension in Alton and Gloria's characters' relationship. Here's a synopsis from Wikipedia. So if you read the synopsis, Alton Scales is an African-American activist and Sidney's friend who falls in love with Iris's beautiful sister, Gloria, a supposed international model. He is able to persuade Sidney to support the candidacy of Wally O'Hara, despite Sidney's initial refusal to incorporate politics into his newly established artistic newspaper. Wally is a local reform politician who is appalled by the extensive drug use in Greenwich Village and the surrounding area. Sidney agrees to support him, but later learns of O'Hara's corruption. Afterwards, Sidney harbors significant hatred for the reform politician. Gloria, and again, Gloria Alton, that's the cast. Gloria's idealistic image is shattered when Alton learns that she is a prostitute and not an international model as she and her sister, Iris, had insisted. Wrought with anguish at the idea of his beloved being used as a commodity and tying it to the same ideology used to justify the African slave trade, to which he traces his roots, Alton leaves Gloria. In an act of desperation and shame, she dies by unaliving. Attributing Gloria's unaliving to the campaigning slogans of Wally, Sidney develops a position in opposition to the politician. This creates problems that reconcile Sidney and Iris. The play ends with the scene of Sidney and Iris in a devastated embrace at the loss of Gloria. Iris indicates with her last lines of the play that she wants to come home. Sidney makes a silent agreement that they will figure everything out despite the constant dark bickering that the two had throughout the play. It closes while the two are interlocked as the sun rises. So Daisy notes that the Wikipedia synopsis above states that Act 3, which is the final act of the play, ends tragically. Well, that's because in the final act, Gloria unalives because her fiancé Alton dumps her after finding out that she's not a model but a prostitute. Remember, these are the secondary characters, that is the interracial couple I previously mentioned. So then, we've already seen a preview of this because I front-ended this video with it, but Daisy gives us the actress Gus Bierney as Gloria and Julian De Niro, yes, son of Robert De Niro, and Tukey Smith as Alton. So back to Daisy's thoughts. So fast forward at the very end of the play, it turns out that this tragedy causes the main characters of Sidney and his wife to connect and mourn, which presumably rekindles their marriage, or may be interrupted as such. But let's get back to Alton and Gloria. A bit after Alton dumps Gloria, she pretends not to be bothered, but she is heartbroken, and interacts with her brother-in-law Sidney Brustein, as well as one of the neighbors, David, before her demise. Here are excerpts from Act 3 of the play, which give insight into Gloria and her troubles. Remember, this is the final act, which in my opinion, is what playgoers would likely remember most freshly after viewing. So it reads, "Where's my handbag? Get out of the way, Sidney. Come on, who needs this world the way it is?" Pulling free with a mighty jerk. "Let go." She gets the bag and downs the pills, calming long before the effect, simply because she knows that they are inside. You see, no fuss, no muss. Drugs are the coming thing, Sid. Do you keep up with all the writings on mescaline at all? I find it fascinating. She lies down on the sofa. Her version is progressive. She is pushing hard for it, not letting the pills do it. Now she is drinking also. Ha! You want to hear something? I was going to marry that vanilla dinge. Do you know what some of the other girls do? They go off and they sleep with a colored boy. And I mean any colored boy, so long as he is black. Because they figure that is the one bastard who can't look down on them 5 seconds after it's over. And I was going to marry one. So Sidney, crossing to Gloria. Maybe he'll change his mind. He was sort of in a state of shock about it. I mean, try to understand. It's very complicated about Alton. Gloria. Oh, so he's in a state of shock. Oh, Jesus, that yellow-faced bastard. He's shocked. Look, Sid, I'll bet you 2 to 1 that at this instant he is lying dead drunk in the arms of the blondest or blackest two-bit hooker in town, nursing his shock, telling his tale of woe. His tale. She'll be telling it somewhere by morning to the girls and moaning with laughter, like I'm doing. Aw, what the hell am I carrying on for? It wouldn't have worked. And besides, the life beats the hell out of that 9 to 5 jazz. Suddenly a violent sob. Sidney, what happened to my life? So Sidney tries to go to her. She holds out a hand to stay him. I'll be 26 this winter, and I have tried to unalive myself 3 times since I was 23. I was always awkward, but I'll make it. Or maybe a loony trick will be enough. Or maybe a loony trick will be thorough some night. She sits up. Well, that's enough doom and gloom, everybody. Come on. Sidney, brother, cheer up. She rumples his hair, nuzzles playfully in a desperate attempt at gaiety and release. After all, how many things could a nice, normal, healthy American girl kick all at one time? The racket and the pills? And take on integration, too? Weaving towards the phonograph. Let's have some music, and none of that creepy stuff my creepy father used to play. She puts on a record, some very modern jazz. It throbs low and warm and intense. Yeah, that's good. I have to have music. It helps to close things out. It envelopes you. She beckons and Sidney moves into her arms. They begin to dance in a tight embrace, he in a bemused and delicious half stupor, she as if, in the mere physical body contact, she were clinging to life. Now, that denaturalization of these moments begins to heighten as per their state. A light, deathly pale of great transparency settles slowly, and as imperceptibly as possible. It gives way to a hot and sensual fuchsia. The music follows suit, the more familiar jazz sounds, going even beyond their own definitions. When each speaks, it is stiffly and unnaturally, intoned with a heightened, fragmented assertion beyond sense or sequence, as if lucidity no longer required logic. An absurdist orgy is being created in front of us, a disintegration of reality to parallel the disintegration in Sidney's world. Things as they are as they are, and have been, and will be that way because they got that way, because things were as they were in the first place. And now we jump a bit, so we're going to get to a part where David, the neighbor, was sent to go look for Alton, because Gloria wants to find Alton. Gloria, nodding up and down drunkenly, and you've been looking for him ever since. David, he never came back. Gloria, and now? David, there is a beautiful burnished golden boy, very much like Nelson, sitting on a chair upstairs. He is from one of the oldest, finest families in New England. He is exquisite, but great damage has been done to him. Gloria, for this girl there are no surprises left. He requires the presence of a woman, not just any girl, but someone young enough, fresh enough, and certain light to make him think it is somebody of his own class. David, yes, but there is nothing to do. Apparently, it is merely a matter of watching. Gloria, raising her eyes pathetically. And you're a friend of Sidney's? David, if not for me, perhaps you can understand. If he asked for the snows of the Himalayas tonight, I would try to get it for him. I thought you might know of such things. Gloria, agonized. Oh, I know of such things. David, will you come up? Gloria, a beat, not really to him. Sure, why not? David, it's apartment 3F. He goes up and out. Gloria stands up for a long moment, looking after him, then crosses quickly to the phonograph, which she turns up louder, as if to drown out some voice that speaks only to her, till the persistent, lonely chaos of the music fills the room. She tries to dance a little. That doesn't work. She downs more goofball pills with liquor. Then, snapping her fingers and undulating a little to the rhythms of the room, with a fixed smile, she goes out. But, as she mounts the 3rd step, she freezes in the grip of a physical revulsion she can no longer contain, then suddenly whirls. Gloria, her words are a single guttural cry of pain. Sick people belong in hospitals. For a long moment, her eyes dart frantically and she whimpers, trapped, seeking refuge. There is none. At last she looks at the bottle of pills in her hand, walks slowly back and stands, spent, in the doorway. Then, resolutely, Papa, I am better than this. Now will you forgive me? She crosses to the bathroom, clutching the bottle, halts, terrified at the unseen presence there, turns away, but then, with the final lift of her head, she enters and closes the door. The phone begins to ring and the lights slowly dim. Sidney sleeps on. And then the lights dim out. So that's Sidney's demise. She unalives in that after that whirlwind of back and forth emotions when Alton can't be found and isn't coming back. So Daisy says, so imagine, after viewing this play in person with the final act in mind, Grace Jabbari and Jonathan Majors go to dinner after, then get in the car to be chauffeured home until Jonathan Majors receives the text that set off Grace Jabbari to attack him, to which Jonathan Majors flees 3 times. First, by Jonathan Majors asking the driver to stop, and then fleeing the vehicle mid-slap and scratch attack from Grace Jabbari attacking him, trying to keep her in the vehicle, her not letting go, him running away several street blocks. Second, by Jonathan Majors leaving the vehicle again after another attack by Grace Jabbari, where she rips his coat and pops buttons by striking with her dominant hand, which is her right hand. And third, by Jonathan Majors leaving the vehicle yet again in a matter of seconds for the third and last time to escape Grace Jabbari before staying at a hotel, only to wake up the next morning to a bevy of text messages from Grace Jabbari, with one final one reading, "There's no note, just you knowing what happened," and JM replying, "Did you leave the keys? Goodbye, Grace," before Jonathan Majors goes back to his apartment and discovers a lit candle, open suitcase, and being locked out of his bedroom, not even taking into account her drinking problems, clinginess, other personal things, and maybe other troubling things and general habits he knows about her. Just imagine, after having watched a play less than 24 hours before, where in the final act, a thin, blonde, white woman unalives by overdosing on pills in an apartment bathroom after being dumped by her African-American boyfriend, only for Jonathan Majors, an African-American man, to come home to his apartment, find his bedroom door locked, have the handyman open it to find Grace Jabbari, a thin, blonde, white woman, laid out on the floor so as to appear to be unconscious, wearing a sweatshirt sentimental to Jonathan Majors in the closet, across from the bathroom, and an open spilled pill bottle in plain view near that area, while Jonathan Majors notices a cut behind her ear and a bruised finger. Then Jonathan Majors had to make the decision to call 911. Imagine what might have sped through his mind before tapping those 3 numbers and then tapping the green call symbol, and then once the number was dialed, well, we all heard the 911 call. So again, my jaw was on the floor after this, and again, you can go and watch. We talk about this sentimental hoodie. It's a Sesame Street hoodie that was a collaboration with Flamingo Estate. That was figured out. The live chat in real time helped us detective work that out. It was awesome. But you can see Pam's reactions, tons of great insights from Pam. Danny joins along the way. Let's see where Danny pops in. So Danny's in the chat, and then she pops up in. She shares her thoughts once she's able to catch up on the plot of the play, which I think all 3 of us went through a moment where our jaw was on the floor. But there were other interesting bits where I was thinking about how Grace says in the beginning of dinner that night, after they go to the play, they go to dinner behind Walter's at Karasu. I think that's how you pronounce it. She says the beginning of dinner was tense, but then got really lovely. And during her testimony, she was kind of wishy-washy and unclear and very vague about why it could have been tense. But if you go see a movie and then you go to dinner right afterwards, what do you think you're probably talking about? And the subject matter of the play that they go and see isn't light subject matter at all. There's unaliving, there's mental health, there's breakups, there's racial tension. And the racial tension fits the profile of their relationship, right? Not only does this actress seem to favor Grace Jabbari quite a bit, but it's just in general an interracial relationship. It's a story of interracial dating. And undeniably, that's something that could describe Grace Jabbari and Jonathan Majors dating. It's possible that having a conversation about that play was difficult, intense conversations. Not that that means that it's bad. Sometimes you can talk about complicated and sad things that happen in a movie or a book or a play, and it can be some hard topics to talk about and have discourse about. But it became interesting to me to know that Grace Jabbari characterized it as very tense, and she didn't want to describe why it could have been that way. There were other small details that popped out to me. I believe that Grace Jabbari is a visual person. As far as her career path and her artistic skills, she is a motion coach, which is a very visual form of dance. It's not just about the physical movements, but how that physical movement can play into the cinematography of a scene. So I personally think Grace Jabbari is a visually inclined person who also likes to adopt details from other people's stories. There were small details of this play that I'm sure were acted out visually on the stage while they were watching it Things like Gloria dancing around and having a moment of revulsion. We know that Jabbari, in her own testimony, said she was laying on the bed the morning of March 25th, and she mentions feeling pain on her right side, but then she jolts to feeling hideous. She says she felt hideous, which, if you're in physical pain, that's an interesting thing to jump to. And we see Gloria, the character, have the same focus on physical revulsion with self. And we know she goes into the bathroom, she closes the door. We know there was drinking. We know there was the visual appearance of pills, although it's not clear if more than one or two were actually consumed. It's possible that the pill bottle was just there to be seen visually. And then there was also a weird fixation with Grace Jabbari's testimony, where first she insists that she chose to fall asleep on the bathroom floor because it was warm. Then she changes and says, well, it was kind of halfway in between the bathroom and the closet. And then we also hear that she passed out unconscious and doesn't have any recollection of Jonathan Majors coming home or anything like that. Even though she was texting her friend, talking to her friend about hearing him come home, tripping over a suitcase, just minutes before the police arrive. So a lot of this stuff doesn't add up, but if we take it at face value and think about how in this play, Gloria goes into the bathroom to unalive, maybe that's why Grace Jabbari was so insistent that she was really in the bathroom. But that's not where she was laying when Jonathan Majors gets home and when the first responders arrive. And after really looking at the content of this play, and thanks again, shout out to Daisy, I had no doubt that Jonathan Majors believed it was an unaliving attempt. I had no doubt that Jonathan Majors believed that this was an unaliving attempt on the morning of March 25th, based on the text messages, the calls, things that were discussed that we weren't able to see in the previous slew of text messages that she was sending. We only really get to see that last one. And then walking in and seeing like a candle. There were lit candles in the body cam, the police body cam, Lucera's body cam. The idea of staged photos, things that would make someone feel the sentimental draw to get back together with you. I never really doubt that Jonathan Majors was worried about the text messages, arrived, and then was even more alarmed at what he saw when he arrived at the penthouse apartment. But I always wondered, why would someone even come up with the idea of doing that? Well, we know she had an ex that unalived himself while they were dating, so she could be very well aware of the pain that that could make someone feel. And then she also just had this visual all night. She's watching a play where, although they're secondary characters, it's the main mechanism that motivates the romance between the main characters, right? It's this big visual thing that has to happen. So I had struggled with the idea of why would someone do that? How would they even think to do that? And I think this is the missing piece right here. And then while we were live, while we were all discussing like the context surrounding this night of March 25th and how it relates to the play that they just saw less than 24 hours ago, we went back and revisited the testimony about the dinner itself. Now, a few weeks before, when we were all diving into the transcripts, we were wondering about Priya S., Jonathan Majors' manager, who Grace Jabbari decided to talk to and spill the beans about his personal business and his mental health. And there's plenty of inconsistencies surrounding that and her reasoning for doing so. But again, you can check out those testimony videos or read the transcripts for yourself to see. Let's focus here on this video. So this is from direct testimony, and Daisy highlighted some key points, but let's read this testimony about the dinner. How do you know the defendant was acting cold? Just the kind of level of conversation, his demeanor physically, just was a bit tighter, you know? Yeah. There was like no touching or looking at me at all. And approximately how long had you been dating on March 24th? Coming up to 2 years in August. What, if anything, did the defendant say at dinner? He was saying that because of the conversation I had, that he was going to unalive himself, that he, yeah, saying kind of stuff. He's a monster. He says I'm a monster. I shouldn't be there. Now everyone knows, and yeah, and kind of blaming me, you know, I'm going to unalive myself. I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to do it. And I was replying saying, you know, please don't. Think of your family, all this, you know, kind of. And I'm going to pause there because a few of us were like, and I was replying, people were like, well, maybe she's thinking, and I kind of agree, I see it, replying, saying she's thinking of those text messages from September 2022 where he says he's a monster and he's going to unalive himself. And she's just taking those text messages that she knows there's a paper trail record of, and she's inserting those details, reverse engineering and retrofitting it to explain this tense dinner situation right after they see this play. He was mad because I talked to his manager, Priya Satyani, and replying seems like, you can reply verbally in a physical conversation, but replying also usually is how people describe a text message. And we know that in that moment, she did reply saying, think of Ella, think of your mom. Have you had similar conversations previously? Yes. So this is like one of the rare times we get a flat out yes from her because she's thinking of this exact previous conversation that she's referencing. And what did you reply to the defendant? I just asked him to kind of just take a deep breath and know that that's not what the option should be here. The option here should be getting help, not like this extreme of unaliving yourself. It's not, yeah, I knew it's hard to know what I can say. My response was that he shouldn't do it and that there's other ways to deal with these feelings that he's feeling and his behaviors. There's other ways to fix this, and that shouldn't be that, You're precious and loved, and yeah. How did the defendant threaten to unalive impact you at that dinner? It almost felt like every time he said it, it was going into this kind of wound, the same wound, just feeling like I didn't even know why you're feeling like this because you don't tell me. And this whole thing, this conversation tonight is all about the fact I was just asking for some help and it's causing you to feel this. But then, so how do I navigate myself in this situation? I just need a little bit of support, just a tiny bit, and I'm not allowed because if I say, like, there's a way out of this, that's not that, and I can do it with you, and I'm going to unalive myself. So then it felt like I'm not allowed to bring it up. So we have it stay in this place of where it is, which is not, I felt fear in those moments as opposed to love and safety and all the other moments surrounding it. When you comforted the defendant, how did the defendant respond? Eventually, he kind of came around to feeling safe and loved, and then we had a really nice rest of the evening. So I have so many issues with this testimony because I feel like she's inserting a reason for the dinner being tense, right? But also, she says, I felt fear in those moments. Like, she interjects that there was fear. She mentions his behaviors above. She mentions, I don't get a break because he's always talking about unaliving, but then she complains that he doesn't talk about it with her. And then here, this language, I felt fear in those moments as opposed to love and safety. Now, the text messages from September 2022 are him expressing not feeling love and safety. You don't protect us. You don't show me love. And yet she says it here, I felt fear in those moments as opposed to love and safety. I don't feel loved and safe at this dinner right now. And then she has to comfort him. And eventually he came around to feeling safe and loved, which means he wasn't feeling safe and loved. So you just say, to me, it seems like she did role reversal and tripped up on her words. And it switches back by the time she has to answer the next question. But I digress. And then we had a really nice rest of the evening. And what did you eat at that dinner? Quite a lot, I think. It was like some meat, some rice dishes. She always eats a lot when they're drinking. What, if anything, did you have to drink? We had a couple cocktails, maybe 3. One of them was sent over by some people who were fans of his, and then I think we got 2 more. And what was the mood at the end of dinner? It was really, really nice. Like, it was really flirty, really intimate again, and we were saying how we were excited to get home and just have a nice time. So then Daisy shares her thoughts here. I just don't get it that was her testimony of dinner. She reduced it to as if it was just JM threatening unaliving again, which is just so dismissive and cruel. And that's it. But only for her to use the play against him with unaliving. That is what I think happened. So a lot to unpack there. That is the play that Jonathan Majors and Grace Jabbari saw on the night of March 24th. What are your thoughts about this? And again, if you want to check out the live stream that, Danny, Pam jump on, we talk about this, the whole chat's talking about it. The links for that will be in the description, and I'll pin a comment for it as well. But what are your thoughts? What do you think went down March 24th into March 25th? Do you think this play relates at all? Floor is yours. Leave it in the comments. You guys take care.